Fuck! We're off to our grand start. Okay. Yes, I'm starting early. Because I can. Okay. Welcome in, any and all. I'll be getting started just a second. I've got to finalize just a few things. Alrighty. And okay. That's too loud. Hey, there we go. Yes, I have the verbal zoomies, and we have a start. The writing night. I have a strawberries and cream Dr. Pepper. You guys here on Earth make the best soda. The blackberry one's not bad, but like the strawberries and cream one, that's just perfection as far as sodas go. So, real quick disclaimer, tonight's topic will be very it's going to be a bit of a hard topic to talk about because what I'm going to be covering is going to be covering a wide range of things. We're going to be talking about prejudice, classism, just to name a few, and a couple other ones that are going to be... But we'll get to that in a moment. The verbal night... The verbal night, oh god. I'm laughing nervously because this is a topic that I'm excited about and I want to challenge people with. And myself as a VTuber. But so I just said this twice. I'm feeling better officially as of Monday. My car had a smoke issue Monday. You know, smoke coming in through the air conditioning vents. That's not... You don't want to... That's not something you want to deal with, especially here in Price City. Where, you know, if you're not paying attention, you'll get that, you know, I believe humans call it like that premium air type scam. I can promise you I'm not as so clueless that I haven't figured out that that's not a thing. This is what. So, I'm gonna describe a term I coined on both my X and my Blue Sky account. The verbal zoomies is basically what happens when I get so hyper. I am excited and hyper focused that it's just like, hello, hello. So, bear with me as I talk, because it's going to be a very interesting evening. We're going to be talking. I spend way too much time on X. Anyway, we're going to be talking about harder topics and how to wield those within your narrative. And this is just my process and how I approach these incredibly specific topics within my own personal writing on some level. So, let me switch to the topic and we'll get started. Boom. I am nothing if not efficient. Okay. Okay. Oh, we're gonna start with, I think, the hard topic of classism and how it can be depicted, especially with how things are seen and shown to be in our own lives here in parts of the world. Classism is basically a form of discrimination, to quickly go over. It's based on social class and economic status. Think the type of things you've seen where people will go, "Oh, I am a man of proper living," or Billy Zane in Titanic, literally quoting the film. Half the people on this ship are gonna die, not the better half. This right here is classism. Yes! Exactly! Welcome to my streams. Because I'm one of the people who believe that if you want to talk about this in regards to writing, you should have the ability to do it as long as you have the mentality. Yeet! We have another Yeet! So good to see you! Yay! Did you like my aggressive compliment? It's alright, my man. Don't worry. You woo! So, my main approach as a writer when it comes to classism is that you have to understand there are how you want to approach it before you do it. That sounds a little bit general. Let me explain. You can either be something similar to solar solo leveling, and with the hunter ranks, where the higher you are, the more ranks and perks you get in life. And if you're at the bottom rung, you're fucked. Now, or you can just do the very blunt, to the point, Titanic approach of, I'm better than the poor people, or MJF, when you literally will straight up call people poors on national TV. That man is an 80s heel in 2025. But that's a different type of discussion. So, when you're having these types of elitism and classism, you need to think very hard about what the structure around it has done to create that type of systemic problem. Because as we all know, we've also got, the classic thing I've seen where people will go, who are rich will go, stop being poor! And I'm like, I live in a city controlled by a family of greed demons. I respectfully agree and disagree with that. Because it depends on what type of world and setting, in my opinion. So, it is a human being's problem, but it's also a systemic problem depending on how the society itself is built within the narrative. Because if you have beings that aren't human, then it's, yes, you're still writing from that, but yeah. Oh yeah, we're all inherently flawed. And that's absolutely true. But I think it's a matter of context. Because I've seen classism built with, oh yeah, okay. This is one of the reasons I love talking about this kind of stuff, because we can get into the meat and potatoes and freely sink your teeth into this stuff. So, correct. Now, with a systemic versus human beings problem, that goes into humans are naturally flawed, we are naturally stupid as a collective. Not everybody, but you get the idea. Okay, I want to make sure that can be seen. So, in my own writing, the Goalie Dig are a perfect example of this. They are a somewhat classist society to an extent, depending on what part of the world you live in. Terrazia, which is another world of my writing, is also very extremely classist, but it's based more on monetary status and name than it is people just simply being a dick. Now that's what I would call a systemic problem, in that the elites, but then again, I could also talk about how both well, okay, words. So, I'm gonna use Terrazia as an example. The main character I use for that story in that world, her name is Zani. General goober and a cowgirl. It, like, with the attire, not like the species. Peroxians are basically space tieflings without tails, but that anyway. Is it your turn to bully me, Mr. Zerg? No giving people spoilers. Really keep links. Fair. I did take heavy inspiration from both the Twi'leks and Tieflings as a concept. If you want a general idea of what a Tarazian looks like, imagine Zani from Wuthering Waves, but with, like, green skin? Like an orc? Yep. Boom. Also, we'll get into, like, weapon creation and having weird alien weapons. Anyway, later. That'll be after we do harder topics. So, she is a bounty hunter. Societally speaking, her homeworld mostly views her as a nuisance. This is because she has moved. Yes, I haven't got that far. Don't spoil. I just finished Blue Exorcist in fucking solo level. In like 2 weeks. Fucking been binge watching that now. It's Freerin Dungeon. Glitches in Dungeon. Fucking Demon Slayer. Wait. Yeah, Demon Slayer. Freerin is honestly a work of art that is very rare in the modern world. To me, it's a generational anime. In every sense of the word. Huh. Anyway. And no, I don't mind y'all saying that. And that's one of the things that I like about that anime. Look, I don't care if I show people that. I don't even know what that is. Well, I guess we need to figure something out. The fuck out. Okay. I'm still figuring this out, okay? 8 months and I'm still learning shit! Welcome! Oh, I will endeavor to try my hardest not to do that. The last thing I want is being... The last thing we need is Amari being viciously... yeah. My bad. Now, back to zombie. This explains my systemic claim and also backs up Megadeth's words about classism being a human problem and a societal problem. Societally, Johnny is among the lower rungs of society as an outcast. Naturally, he's abrasive, to say the least. So... and people will be generally rude and crass to somebody who is literally considered an outcast, a outlier. So, I promise you, I will try to tone my language down because I don't want a small child cursing. That is some no. I want to live. So, when we're talking about that just goes exactly to what we've been talking about. You have to think about the lens you are presenting classism through. You have to think about the structure it's used for. And you have to think about how you want to present it. And of course, do your research. Of course, I do that again. But anyway, so exactly. And that's one of the other things that makes this such a one of the harder topics to talk about. Writing has to have context. No matter what you're writing about. If you're writing a horror story from the perspective of the monster, you need to take a different mindset than if you were writing a traditional horror story. As Mega here points us out, I'm hoping I can help. So, the other thing that, like Mega was saying, we need to think about also who are, if they're low on the low rung of their homeworld, what are they elsewhere? Oh. I just felt so hurt that hurt my throat. Wow. Ow. You got what? Hold up. Hold up. Wait, I need to confirm this. Okay. Look, okay, I'm gonna say this. You guys can curse in my chat, as long as you guys... Yes, we'll get to that in a minute. As long as you keep it playful and within your own personal beliefs. And don't get like insulting somebody. As long as y'all using it to behave or bully me, I'm okay. Bullying me is always, in every sense of the word, permissible. Because I see it as a form of endearment. But yes! That's another thing. Waxing poetic and being flowery about how they're going through this. That's not the way to do it. That's another good point. This is one of the reasons I like talking to you about writing, Mega. I'm gonna call you Zerd. Because I know that's your other name, and that's what you are, and as listed you in my debut. But anyway. The debut that magically disappeared. And one day will return. Yes, I had to clip that. Anyway. Fuck! Pardon my language. Shit. I'm stumbling and falling into the mud. You can actually change your username. Just saying. But yes, this is another thing that goes with all hard topics. Do not tell Joe. You know, you can unfollow him. I'll tell you how later. Anyway. So, when it comes to... Yes, I have. I was about to go to that. With something like Dune, we have a very rigid classism of nobles and priesthood class. I can now forever not see the Emperor as Christopher Walken. I'm just hearing Paul Atreides. Timothy Chalamet killed it as Paul. I'm just gonna say that. No worries. Adios. Dune is not an easy read. It's Game of Thrones on steroids. It really... See you around, man. It is Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones was Game of Thrones. It is a network of politics and classism and negotiation. It's... God ain't my cup of either. I'm more of a Lord of the Rings guy. I'm a Tolkien guy. I need to start Wheel of Time. I'm actually going through the Upperson trilogy by Garth Nix. Specifically, Sabriel. When it's narrated by Tim Curry, and it's a very inventive way on how to present necromancy, I have to admit, I think that's an incredibly fascinating read. I'd love to see how people come up with, like, different things and take new takes on what would be considered traditional forms of, quote, magic. in our broad sphere of literature. But yes, when it comes to showing and not telling, if I wrote 7 pages about how Zani is taught about how Zani is showing, or is it when what she deals with while being on her homeworld, you will not connect to that as well as if I showed you through the whole story. Zani, in the pretext of her story, that classism is shown, but only a little bit. It's not the focus. It's her confronting the literal devil of her world. But the classism is shown in how he perceives her people and her. And this goes into how many things what I call racial classism. I think that's actually a term. But I got to focus on right. Oh wow. Okay. This is something that's a bit of a trope in most fantasy literature. How many times have we heard an elf call a human idiot a fool? Or call a dwarf, call an elf knife eater? Or a dragon shit talk a human or a party? Bilbo and Smaug. Or is it Smaug? Anyway. Or Dracula and Belmont. So yeah. We've all heard that. We've all seen it 1,000 times. I'm specifically talking about the lens of these 4 right here. This is where you can get away with a little bit more telling and less showing. Because in some cases, a dragon just hates humans because he's bigger, older, and can melt them with fire. Or an elf is just, I've lived longer than half of you. I know your great-granddaddy, your granddaddy, and your daddy. All the daddies. But, or dwarves being like, "Wah! Humans don't know how to make stuff." That kind of thing. These are, and then vampire going, "Oh, you must be the Belmont." Thank you, Castlevania. This is before Adi Shankar decided to go crazy. I'm not talking shit about Devil May Cry. I'm more poking fun at the creator. Because he showed up, and I respect it. I respect it. But no, I'm not gonna ever, like, talk shit about something I haven't seen. That's another fun fact about me. But I'll poke fun at some things, but never anything quite so drastic. So, when it comes to these particular 4 races within fantasy literature, No, not really. I got bullied a little bit. We had some talk about some basic classism. Talking about Billy Zane's role in Titanic. Let me check something real quick. Noted. Okay. Now back to the topic at hand. Found a Teopop? No. Could you elaborate, please? This is something me and Number Crown have in common. We're both deeply fascinated and know quite a bit about the Titanic disaster. I'm curious. You don't have to elucidate, but it's totally up to you. But the Titanic is also a perfect example of where classism can both be a human and societal thing. If we go by like the old theories that were believed heavily until they were able to confirm opposite. Oh. No worries. I will never hesitate to let people poke fun at me, because I tear myself into myself viciously all the time. So, but in most cases, in my opinion, the three most classist races in contemporary fantasy are often not dwarves. Really, that's more just prejudice. But it's elves, vampires, and dragons. And to be fair, at least with dragons, you can't argue with a giant scale creature that can breathe an element at you and can eat you. That's a form of of racial classism and racism. Dragons are an interesting bunch. The Salmore. How dare you worship Talos? Fuck off. Sorry, my language. I had to commit a bit there, I apologize. So. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. The Dunmer and the Elder Scrolls. Damn. They are incredibly prone to looking down on other races, even other elves. Exactly. That's a different type of classism. That goes into just straight up racism and hyper xenophobia. So I'm going to slightly shift a little bit here and basically say the crux of all of this is having context, research, passion, focus, and understanding. You have to have context for what the classism of your world is. You have to do your research to understand classism from both a societal and human nature side. Think sometimes it's a human nature thing, the way MGF is portrayed on TV. I doubt he's like that in real life. But the character is a perfect example, you know. Or Billy Zane in Titanic. Half the people on the ship are gonna die, not the better half. A passion for getting this topic right. Because this is an extremely hard thing to talk about when it comes to writing. Focus to zero in for your narrative and for your world, to not let it control the narrative, but use it to help enhance the narrative and make the world more lived in. And then understanding that, well, of all of the other elements. No, that wasn't a cop-out. So, we're going to take a break before we move on to the next topic. And I'm going to have a little fun with y'all, and we're going to talk about... We're going to move to the just chatting section of tonight. And we are going to talk about a game I have my eye on. Speaking of Elder Scrolls Online. How would y'all react if I got Elder Scrolls Oblivion? I'm not even sure I can run a... I probably can, but... Wait, no, I can. Give it. Because I am a sucker for a good character creator, and if people... And I'm willing to give Todd Howard more money for horse armor. Not my joke, got that from another one. I saw that one on X. But yeah. But yes, I am thinking very much about getting Oblivion. I'm also thinking about getting Indiana Jones. Because I've heard so many good things about it. I'm going to also work on getting capture card. Oh, I might not be able to commission stuff this track. Anyway. I I think Todd Howard really is one of his strengths as a creator. I don't think he's the writer of the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games. He's more like a showrunner, if I understand correctly. Really? Now you have me excited. I've got some confirmations to make tomorrow. But I've also going to say this. I do think that there are some people, Todd Howard's one of them. They work better when they have controls on them. And this isn't like a dig on them. It's more of like, I think almost every writer, if they have someone kind of having a check on them, it helps enhance their abilities a little bit more because it helps them push themselves to a higher level. Now, okay. So let's talk about some other stuff for a moment. How is everyone this evening? I hope y'all are doing good. Because I wanted to take a little bit of I want to talk to y'all directly and hang out with y'all. I'm doing okay. I've had car issues. Price City itself is being a little bit extra manic lately. But I have officially declared to the VTubing world that I am a fae. Originally, that was not the intention. I didn't really have an idea. More like a kind of just the role was thrust upon me. But I'm happy to hear that you're doing well. My mon. What a surprising turn of fate! That's one of my new favorite. I need to make that a quote. I'm pitting that. That's that. But I will never escape it. I'm going to just embrace it. I guess, like, and there goes my brain. To those who are new to the channel, there are moments where I will be mid-sentence and just be like, but Fuck, what did I say? But yeah, I think I was talking about this Monday after. Oh, I think it was Monday. Yeah, I think. Yes, I was talking about it Monday. It was nothing quite like being literally on the outskirts of Price City, on the side of the road, and there's smoke coming out of your car. That was the worst thing that happened to me. Another instance of fate being cruel, amusing, and loving to mess with me. I think I also said that I can barely keep my own attention span. That was not the mic, that was me hydrating. Last thing we need is me sounding like my throat is super dry. But now, is there... I'm gonna let y'all pick the next hard topic tonight. What would you guys like me to talk about? We've done classism for the first half. I had a great time talking about it. So what would you guys like to do? I could also switch to New Vegas if you guys would like. What was that? No, what in the world? What can we talk about? I know, just the same. Oh, mama. Okay. So. Now, we're going to switch. And I think, since we've talked about classism, let's go into one of the big things you don't talk about. Ever. Politics. So, the main first rule of Mari with politics is understand you have to make a system that is inherently flawed on some level. There are no perfect systems of government. This is common sense, but given how incendiary the topic of politics can get, I'm not going to talk anything more than about how the systems that you use can enhance your narrative and how I would say course correcting them. And we're going to focus on the biggest, most infamous system of government as an example. The Imperium of Man from Warhammer 40,000. As I understand the Warhammer narrative, the Imperium is a theocratic dictatorship ran by a group of zealous elite in service to the will of the Emperor of Man. In Warhammer, the original focus of the Imperium was to be an atheistic government overseen by the Emperor and his agents, sons. I don't count Malcador as I count him more of an agent and friend, but that's different. Goal. What it became. A hyper-zealous state driven on by a misplaced faith in a being who never wished to be worshipped as a god. This is we're having typos, but it's okay. This Warhammer is an incredibly graphic and violent narrative. This is why it's called Warhammer. In the grim darkness of the future, there is only war. Right? Why I'm focusing on this through the lens of politics. Right here. It is one of the most flawed systems in fiction. It's flawed. Elitism. Yeah. Elitism. Classism. Xenophobia. Racism. Genocide on a planetary and system-wide scale. They aren't the only ones. This is just to name a few. Saying the Imperium is flawed is like saying the Titanic didn't... Well... It's like saying the Olympic before it became all reliable was an accident-prone ship. Indeed. The Emperor! But what draws people in is not this. Well, actually, no, that's incorrect. In some cases, yes. What draws people to the Imperium as a reader audience. Politically, the narrative itself is apolitical to some degree, as it's at the end of the day, a narrative meant to serve the tabletop. They can't have the narrative of Warhammer ever be truly political, take a left or right stance, because it could alienate potential customers. Even though they already kind of do that, but because I'm sorry, I'm not paying $300 fucking for plastic. Pardon my language. I had to get that on my out of my energy, out of my system. The themes that do bring people to Warhammer that bring people to Warhammer, sorry for repeating, are duty, honor, bravery against all odds. These are, to me, the main big three reasons most people get into Warhammer. The lore itself is incredibly fascinating as a thought experiment of how dark humans can be as a narrative. But the Imperium politically is... It's a fractured, gigantic system of government that has too many parts. It has... Warhammer fans in the chat, please tell me if I missed any. The Adeptus Astartes, the Adeptus Sororitas, the Ecclesiarchy, the High Lords of Terra, the Adeptus Custodes, the Inquisition, the Administorum, and countless other individual feudal worlds that feed into this gigantic part that creates a, well, screwed up, messed up system. Look at, I mean, then we have the Tau, which is basically just a caste system next with communism. Again, flawed system, because there's no social mobility, there's no way for people to be elevated. You are in that caste. That is where you're supposed to be. It goes back to the thing, my point about politics. All systems of government within your narrative have to be flawed. I'm just going to list the flaws of the big three in my universe. One is a military monarchy, excuse me, a militaristic monarchy, excuse me, imperial government. Oh, absolutely. The only damn system that even remotely functions without some corruption is Ultramar. But that's space Rome, so who's to say there's not corruption there? These are the three main governments in my own faction. All three are flawed because they don't answer all of the societal parts that human nature needs and requires. Somewhat simplified, I'm and bear with me, guys. I'm using this as a generalized example to get my point across. Each of these, one answers the question of order in their eyes. One answers the answer of freedom. And the other, security. There's no sole answer that's correct among each of these factions. This is where my main philosophy with politics goes. We have to keep this in mind. Because if you have a perfect system where everyone's happy, everything is, that's a utopia. And if you don't want a utopia or need one, your politics in your narrative must be flawed. I'm a bold and under this. Because I'm not going to touch on any particular political subjects, but I'm going to talk about the generalized stuff here in Price City. The city here is ran by a family. Very cruel family. Right? They run pretty much almost every legal and otherwise. This is lore, by the way, not actual. This is Slight Merchant Break. This is lore, not real life. Back to the fun. They run all aspects of Price City, and when I say all of it, they run all of it. This is an oligarchy because it is ruled by the elite. Like a certain country on Earth. Wink, wink. Going no further than that. To avoid a utopia, politically speaking, you have to also understand that humans are... You have to always remind yourself, humans are assholes. We are flawed. We are not... We are very prone to make mistakes. We are fallible. Humans, as a civilization, as a species, are prone to both feats of love and feats of kindness. But we are also, humans are also prone for acts of extreme depravity and extreme cruelty. On the other end. This is why this is impossible. Utopias are narratively with the notion of a human lens, and even are flawed. And they are impossible to achieve. Because there's always going to be something that's going to mess it up. That's one of the things I wanted to focus on. Another thing that I think we need to talk about is political discourse in media and your narrative. I do not believe that being apolitical is anything that people should snub their nose to. But I also feel that no matter what type of media, your beliefs are in that media, or in that writing. So it's apolitical is similar, not quite a utopia level of impossible. It's just you have to tell a very hard line. And this is where gets tricky, because political discourse in narrative, you have to have context of what the author is trying to say. No matter, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Context is key to get the author's perspective in most cases. Sometimes it's just the curtains are blue. Or the thief took the food for their family. That's it. Aladdin found a genie in the Cave of Wonders. There's not much politics there. I don't necessarily agree. I think to a point you're correct. I think that, like, it has to depend again on the narrative itself. And this is where it comes down to it. Sometimes, yes, the answer can and will be best to be ambiguous. Left to the reader's interpretation. Sometimes it's something like Star Wars, and it's just, hey, those guys in the white armor shouldn't have the big ball that can blow planets up with a laser. Walter White shouldn't be poisoning a child. You see my point? It's case by case by case by case by case. In some cases, things have to happen. Doctor Who would call it a fixed point in time. This is where I am very, 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 very emphatic that when it comes to having that context, if you some of it is just reading small things between the lines. Other times, it's looking at who the author is beyond the page. H.P. Lovecraft. A man that was racist even for his time. Is the father of modern cosmic horror, is the reason that games like Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Demon Souls, and so much other stuff. Oh, yeah. Exactly. in most cases, that usually is the case when it's presented in that type of a lens. But I'm going to go one step further and say that when it comes to the both sides have a point, the different ways going about it, you have to be very, very careful about how you present that. I haven't read the Lightbringer saga. I've heard stuff about it, but I need to look at it. Let's look at... trying to think here. There was a... Let's look at some your human history. Most of World War One, as I understand it, was literally a gigantic mess of treaties and other things kind of kicking off a gigantic time. But when you cut past all the politics, there were some people who were evil in World War One, yes. World War II, different story, but we're talking about WW1, the Great War. Look at the Christmas truce, where the Germans and I believe the British, and maybe the French, I can't remember. I wish Mega was still here. With the Christmas truce, where they found that commonality and realized the other guy on the other side of the trench is just another guy. They're just living two different lives with different ways going about it, just like Smurf said. Other times, it's more complex with some of the old Star Wars Legends novels, in which the Separatist planets had legitimate grievances with how corrupt the Republic had become and broke away because of it, not realizing they were getting played by both sides because Palpatine ran both sides. That goes into context is key. Dooku was a far more flawed and nuanced man than he is now. Christopher Lee, may he rest in peace. One of the greatest actors who ever lived. Period. The only man on the Lord of the Rings set that actually met and knew Tolkien. But one moment. It's impossible, in my opinion, in most cases. Well, let me retract that last little bit. It's extremely difficult, like I said, to be apolitical. Another interesting case, I would think, that some of you might find interesting. Has anyone here heard of the band Alter Bridge? Metalingus, Rise Today, Pawns of King. They were formerly, if I remember correctly, from what most of them are former members of the band Creed. And one of the things in their early days, they were very against something that kind of got picked up by their fans, which is a very heavy religious tone in their music. Now, looking at them now, they have since leaned into that. I wouldn't quite call them a gospel band, But they lean into that because that's a part of their identity as musicians, somewhat. Miles Kennedy, I believe, he has. I'm not gonna get into that. I'm not gonna go any further than that. But let's bring us into the next topic. First topic. Let's not talk about that. I got a better one. This is, in my opinion, one of the hardest things to talk about. Oh, writing. I could dedicate a whole stream. I'm going to dedicate the last little bit of the stream and the first little bit of the next one, next Thursday, to this. Critical moments. Dark events. Yeah. In every narrative, there might be moments that make you shudder. Implications that could make your gut spew. Right? Or a critical moment that has to happen. Book 44. Oh, good. Oh, goodness. We don't. I don't think I'm gonna write 44 books. I'm probably gonna write more like 15, but we'll get to that. I'm on 7. I've got 3 more beyond that, and then a couple of small stories, and then I can wrap this whole thing up. Like Court Legends is going to be the long-term thing beyond that. But anyway. No. I am not writing 50 books. Do you have any idea how many words that would be? Okay. So, these things, and I think we can all talk about this. Agreed. I've heard so many things about Warriors that, honestly, I hope I can get that many, but I'm gonna let the story decide. I've got at least 4 stories planned beyond the one I'm about to finish. Like Court Legends is one of them. You know, we'll hear more about that in about a month or 2. I've got to start paying people, which is gonna be fun. but and yes, I've heard about that. And I'll get to that in a second as well. Now, as I know, Wolf Mother has has their own series. What would you say, just as a, without naming your characters, what would you say a critical moment would mean for you? I've heard that as well from Manda / Aiko. Got my eyes closed again. Gotta look at the camera. And we'll put y'all right here. Oh, much better. Even better than before. Fair enough. I just remembered the talks we had about it a while back. But, well, damn. Yes, that's a good definition. When we're talking about critical moments, it's the make or break. It can also be called what's the word? It's on the tip of my tongue. I'm a writer and I don't know this word. The climax. This also can be a key event that happens at the beginning of the story. One second. So, I'm going to use Book 4's antagonist return. His return is a critical moment in that it produces a sudden shift for the entire universe. Right? That is also a dark event. Correct. Correct, Genzi. Sorry, I had to hydrate again. Now, this is also because he's literally a horror that shouldn't exist, shouldn't be alive, but he's come back. Slight spoiler, but it's not enough of one to ruin the novel. Now, dark events. This isn't required for any exact thing, because, you know, not every story has to have a, quote, dark moment, or a seriously, like a cloud hanging on the horizon. Sometimes it's just an adventure. Wolfmother's stories, as I've read, the ones I've read, are good at moments of this. But sometimes the story calls for messed up events. In Book 4, a place gets burned wholesale. I was saying that, like, that you're... I was saying that your stories are a good example of how not every story requires to have a, quote, dark event. Or a dark moment. Sometimes it can just be a really confidence-boosting, strong-willed adventure. It's one of the things I love about your work. Now, character deaths, this is probably the easiest thing to talk about that I've talked about tonight. And you are quite welcome. But, like, I'm gonna go back to this real quick. Critical moments, or to go back to what Gen Z and said, are best described as dynamic moments, plot twists, climaxes, etc. Because not every critical moment is going to be a make or break moment. Not every critical moment is going to be this. Sometimes they're very formless, in my opinion. They take on what the story requires. This is something I learned from Nikki Bond. Stories will take on exactly what they require and nothing more. It's a very strange concept for me at times because you have to slightly personify your work, but it gets the mental job done. These are, as for dark events, these are not required, but keep in mind your story, your audience, and the tone. If you have Nero Lethtep showing up in, for example, something like Wolfmother's writing, he has no business being in the story like that. If there is nothing that indicates a switch or a gradual shift or a massive tonal shift into cosmic horror, you have no reason for Nero Lethtep being there. He isn't in their work, but I digress. It's an example. In books 3 and 4, a dark event I can use is a death of a critical character to the story of what I have written in book 3. It is a sudden shift in, oh shit, the villain is not playing around. Celine is settling her business with her family. Starting with her old man. So, this is a good segue to talk about character deaths. Oh boy. These are not complicated. The simplest question. Does his death affect the story goal, your outcome, or the ending the story itself is going towards? Does it change things that are necessary to change? Or is it pointless? This is where I have this is why Game of Thrones is not my cup of tea. I recognize that George R. R. Martin is incredible as a writer, but it's just not for me because of these questions. His philosophy on character deaths is that deaths in narrative should mirror reality and be random and pure sudden. Which is a good point, a great approach. But it's not required for every single person who is a writer. And this is not required for every dark narrative. This is not required for every fantasy narrative to mirror that. Tolkien is also a great example of how to handle character deaths. Agreed, it does work sometimes. When a character can die randomly, it can create a sudden, hard shock value that can change people's sudden worry about the character, because suddenly I'm a little bit more attached to my favorite character. I'm a little bit more attached to my favorite ship. If I don't know who's likely going to die, or I can't predict it, yes, it does sometimes work, but it's not required for every narrative. Yeah! Yeah! I agree. There are a lot of anime that come out that are very guilty of that exact thing. And this is something I learned from Zerg. It was in here earlier. So I'm not. So, when we're talking about character deaths, if you cannot justify based on these criteria, don't kill them. Oh yeah, Solo Leveling does this every other week. In every episode, that there's a massive read. Somebody dies in a horrific way. And that's great. That's good for the narrative, because the world that is presented in is a very unforgiving world. And there's not a lot of margin of error. There's not a lot of choices that can be made. It's live or die, make or break, as you said earlier. This is the thing I have to ask myself every time I start to contemplate a character death. Because sometimes a character death can also adversely affect the goal that you want for the story. No. I love it, but it's not bad to not like something that someone else likes. I'm gonna go on a quick tangent here. This is something I think every one of y'all can agree with. There are things in media that people are going to like that doesn't necessarily mean you have to like the same things other people do. I am a wrestling fan. A lot of the people I talk to are not. Jay Shiro, who was in here earlier, they're a wrestling fan. I don't talk to them very often, but this I'm trying to illustrate a point. Enjoy what you want to enjoy, but don't let your lack of enjoyment of something adversely affect someone else's enjoyment. Your lack of enjoyment ends where mine began. Your rights end where mine began. That's my mentality on what people like as far as like anime and TV and stuff like that. Because there are moments where wrestling is just brain dead stupid. John Scott getting involved at WrestleMania 41. Yeah. I've heard about that from a few places. And of course. Haha. But we have to think about this. All of it. Absolutely all of it. If Bob's death cannot help the story, will adversely affect it, do not do it. Under any circumstances. Let him live. This is where the story... Oh, absolutely. That's another thing. As a writer, you have to understand that the audience is not in control of the story. You are. When people cave into fan demand too much, it can create problems. Not always, but it can. Because people are prone to nostalgia. People are prone to wanting specific things. People can want this in here, and this in here, and this in here. It does not matter. I never finished the last season. I need to go back and finish it. But yeah. That brings us to the end of part 1. We're going to spend the rest of the time talking. Yes. I heard about that one too. I am very against anything of harassing creators of any kind. Look, if they're not being problematic, they're not being a creep, they're not being... Leave them alone. That's their baby. Be respectful and understand you don't have the complete vision. You don't have the complete... You don't have the complete picture. As the reader, you cannot do that. It crosses a line you will not and cannot come back from. Ever. And I am very... I'm very against harassing authors to change narratives because you don't like what they're writing. Yeah, in some cases, yeah, that is what fanfics are for. And in some cases, fanfiction can create something special. Or terrifying. My immortal. By the way, if I get Twitch affiliate in the next month, I will spend an entire thing reading that. For writing night. I will dedicate a whole night. When I get Twitch affiliate... No, not if. When I get Twitch affiliate, I will spend a night reading that. Just, I'll even out myself and read my first ever piece of writing live on stream. With Mr. Winters and everybody. Oh, I'm not bashing it at all! Whistles innocently. But I don't think I properly explained this. I think this would be a really good thing to talk about. Would anyone like to know what the hell when I... Send me a list! You know what? I'm gonna make a list. When I get Twitch affiliate, that week we will have a week-long celebration doing... stuff. I gotta get me a list. I know I won't check it twice. There we go. But, honestly, this is where I'm going to have a lot of fun. I love my gaming nights, but I really love doing writing night. You know what? I'm gonna make a list on my computer right now. Scrivener, come here. Wait, no. Wait, no. No, we'll just put it here. Okay. Alright, yeah. I've got it listed. Y'all. But the two games I'm looking at getting are going to be definitely the Oblivion and Indiana Jones. I need Obsidian. What's that? I'm curious now. Oh. 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 Link me on Discord, please. Oh, it's on phone? Even better. Excitement for simple organization apps. That makes me even more excited because I use OneNote and I don't like it on phone. Because it's like it's a pain in the rear to answer. Because I'm looking at it over like this is a mess. This is a mess. But because like I have like 30 different books on OneNote. So when I have them, I'm combing through like the digital equivalent of just a pile of paper. And it's just no. And then there's other days where it's just like you're like, oh, well, I wrote that? All of my ideas in one place and I still feel like a goober. Well, oh wait, I am a goober. I can't even lean back properly without making my model look like it's having issues. It wounds me. It wounds me so much. Rock. Oh, I'm wounded. I'm wounded. I'm wounded. But yeah, one thing I will say is I'm a lot more... Oh, right, I was going to explain verbal zoomies. That's what happens when you give Damari soda and leave him to his own devices when he wants to talk about writing and concept and all sorts of stuff. Your brain just starts... Oh no. Okay. Well, my metric, since we're that, on knowing if you nailed it, or at least this is just, again, this is just my opinion, is does it raise the stakes in your narrative? Or does it change the main character's world, whether it be in a small way or in a ginormous way? If you can say yes to a couple of those, you're good. Because nailing it is very subjective. I am, ma'am. This goes for everybody in chat. Take a drink. How you doing, Artemis? Yeah, they're gone. I know who that is. Oh man. Huh? I have water. No worries. I have water and I had Dr. Pepper, but now I have only H2O. Gatorade. H2O. Gatorade. Damn it, I'm crying now. H2O. Okay, news for the uninitiated. When I start laughing uncontrollably, my eyes close. It's just how it is. You start hearing me slapping my leg, it means I'm having a lot of fun. But yes. Tears of hydration! I like that. Oh, I like that. Guys, now I'm thinking of like Great Balls of Fire, but it's like, goodness gracious. Tears of hydration. Is that the water version of that song? Oh. Tonight was still very, very good, and I'm very happy with how things have gone. I'm actually gonna make sure I download the VOD. I can put it up, or I can keep it. But yeah, anyway. Yeah! It would be! Oh, this is perfect. Well, I'm actually about to end it here, so... But you have a good evening, Wolf Mother. Let me get everything ready. And we'll raid somebody.